Okay, awesome. Welcome everybody. Patrick Cooke here. I'm so excited you're here. And anybody watching this or listening on the replay, I'm so excited to be presenting this workshop, Aligning with Purpose and Creative Power. This has been at the center of my focus for many years now. And really my central passion as well. So I'm really excited to share with you what I've learned with the intention of just offering value, really, and insight. So let's jump right into it. If you, just let me know you can hear me okay. If there's any issues with the audio, just let me know in the chat. And if you have any questions, I invite you to take notes if you have a journal or something. Or you can pop them in the chat. So I'll just sort of go through my presentation, and then at the end, we'll just open it up to like an open discussion, Q&A. So if you have any questions, hold on to them or put them in the chat and we can get them all answered at the end. All right, so let's dive into it. So aligning with purpose and creative power. So the first thing, I just want to outline what we will be covering today. So basically how to align with your life's purpose, how to come into alignment with what is really meaningful for you and something that's going to offer you fulfillment and joy and excitement and abundance in your life, and be of highest service for all of life itself, which is the most exciting part that we'll get into a little bit later. How to tap into your creative power. I believe that each and every one of us are creators. We're creating all the time, whether we know it or not. And so becoming aware of that and really tuning into it and harnessing it in an intentional way can be life-changing, not only for yourself, but the impact you have on the people around you, your family, your business, your relationships, and again, the world at large. And then we'll be looking at, what are some of the limitations and obstacles that can get in the way of us discovering our life purpose and expressing your creative power. Because there's lots of them, and being aware of them and starting to work with them is incredibly powerful. And then how to make sense of what's happening in the world. This is something I'm going to touch on a little bit, but again, super important when we're thinking about our purpose and how it might be able to apply in a more general sense, within the spectrum of what's going on in the world and how can we be of highest service. It's important to be able to make sense of what's going on in the world. So we'll touch on that a little bit more. And then some tips and tools on how to live and act in a way that feels fulfilling and meaningful in your purpose, in highest service, in highest excitement, and then how to create a routine that keeps you coming back to that place and moves you towards your highest fulfillment. At the end, I'll offer an invitation and some free bonuses. So still make sure you stick around until then. But otherwise, let's hop right into it. So again, my intention for this workshop today is for you to leave with a deeper understanding and a newfound clarity about how to align with your life purpose and how to access and express your intrinsic creative power. So what does that mean? It's just sort of, I want to give you some insight and perspective on where you might not have been looking at, your purpose and your creativity, where you might have been stuck in sort of mind identification, old patterns, old beliefs, limitations that are keeping your focus super narrow and not in a place of expansiveness, of awareness, of opportunity. So we've really been diving into that. If you guys could just mute yourselves, because I can hear it coming through. There, yeah, awesome, thank you. Cool. And so I'll be offering some insight, some perspective, and then also some tools, some practical tools that you can use in your daily life to align yourself more fully with your creativity and your purpose. All right. Awesome. Again, if you have any questions as we go, just pop them in the chat or write them down and we'll get to all of them at the end of the presentation. Okay, so a little backstory about me. Some of you know me already and know some of my backstory, but I just want to give you a little more insight because I think it's super important to set sort of a container about who I am and what I'm doing right now and what I've experienced. So my story, I'm from Toronto, Canada, born and raised. I sort of followed all the rules. I followed, the societal rules on how to be successful, how to tune into your purpose, how to, follow the social metrics for what happiness looks like, right? And that for me looked like being a good, obedient boy, going to school, following the rules, getting good grades, going to college, getting a degree, getting a job and a house and a car and a wife, and had some kids. By all extents, I was successful. And, you know, on a deeper level, there was some disconnection. There was some gnawing feeling that something was off, that I wasn't living in my highest purpose, that there was more that I could offer to the world and I wasn't doing it and I didn't know why. I always knew there was a power within me, and that was incredibly powerful, but also extremely scary because I didn't understand it. I didn't know what to do with it. And so I hid from it. I sort of covered it up, and, you know, alcohol was a big way that I used, a big way that I escaped from my problems and my stress and my disconnection from my truest self. I'm Irish Catholic, so that wasn't out of the ordinary from my family and my crew. So I realized only later that, you know, alcohol was really holding me back. And so in 2012, I visited Costa Rica for the first time and fell in love with the place, felt a deep connection, a soul's calling, and convinced my wife and my 2 small children to move there. And so we've been there for almost 9 years. And that sort of set me off on a path of personal transformation and development that I've been continuing to this day. And almost 3 years ago now, I made the massive decision to cut alcohol out of my life completely. And in that time, I've been fully dedicated to exploring what my purpose is, exploring how to more deeply access my creativity in order to be of highest service in the world. And so that means I've experimented a lot, and I've done a lot of thinking about it. I've worked with a lot of coaches, a lot of mentors, gone to a lot of retreats. I've worked with plant medicine. I've worked with alternative healing modalities, and all of it has been informing how I can most deeply align with my purpose and my creativity. So in this workshop, I want to share all of the insight, all of the perspective, all the modalities, all the techniques that I've used to deepen my connection to my purpose and to my creative power. So I realized that later I was seeking outwardly when I talked about that societal metrics of success, you know, getting a job and family and everything. Those are all seeking outwardly for validation, seeking outwardly for knowledge. And so I didn't realize until only, you know, a couple of years ago that true happiness, true purpose, true transformation only happens when we decide and make the powerful choice to begin looking inward, because that is where all of our power resides. That's where we can access our infinite well of creativity, of purpose, of healing, of manifestation. And one of the biggest modalities that I've used in my career and my life is music. We'll get into that a little bit later as well. All right, so let's keep moving. What is the definition of purpose? So for me, purpose means identifying and creatively expressing your deepest and truest essence into the world in a way that maximizes benefit for you and for all of life simultaneously. So it is entirely up to you and your creativity to determine how and in what ways your purpose will manifest. And this is just the most beautiful concept that I didn't really understand until recently. You know, often, and I think it's the next slide that we'll get into, often you're asked, you know, when you're growing up, what do you want to be when you grow up? And most often the answer for kids is like, oh, I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be a doctor, I want to be an accountant or a lawyer or something like that. It's tied to one macroeconomic outcome. And that's an indication of the conditioning and those societal metrics that we're expected to fulfill, right? It's not about the kid doesn't say, oh, I want to be creative, or I want to be honest, I want to be a good friend, I want to be trustworthy. It's no essence of being, it's a doing thing, right? And so immediately when we're kids, we get tied into this macroeconomic of what purpose should be. And so we have this myopic, narrow focus as we grow into adulthood that it has to be tied to one specific outcome. And that usually means making money. But what I've realized over the last 3 years, that its purpose at its deepest level is identifying and uncovering your deepest essence, your truest essence at the deepest layer. And then allowing yourself to move into the world and to operate into the world through that place, through that grounded, fundamental, heart-centered space. And that, when you creatively express it into the world, can manifest in many different ways, right? So for me, I was a musician. I wrote music for advertising for a long time. And that felt purposeful because I was expressing myself. I was using my talent. But at the same time, I was using my talent to help advertisers and marketers and corporations sell things to people that they didn't really need. It was manipulative and it didn't really feel in alignment with my soul, right? But that wasn't the only way I could express myself or my purpose, right? So in the last couple of years, I've really dug deep into what is really meaningful for me. What are my core values and how can they show up in the world as purpose in a different way? And that's how I got into coaching. Right after I quit drinking, I was invited to go to a retreat as the musician, not as a participant. And the retreat was for the Association of Transformational Leaders. And at that retreat, I was privy to, in the same space of these super high frequency entrepreneurs and healers and people that were really, pushing the needle in the world and making a positive impact and making money and had a sense of fulfillment and joy, that they were doing something meaningful. And it blew my mind. It opened my mind to what was possible. And since then, in the last 3 years, I've been really tuning in and exploring what that means for me. Right. And so this is part of this. It's your purpose isn't going to necessarily be one thing. It can manifest in many different ways. Right. And so, but the most important thing we can do is clear away what's limiting us. And we can get into that in a minute. All right, so let's keep moving. So this is one of my favorite quotes, and I just wanted to share it with you as sort of my belief. You don't have to believe this, but it's a nice reframe. We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Let me say that again. We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. So this reframes life to me in a really powerful way. And I'll tie it in with some evolutionary theory here. So when we're born, we're basically blank slates as human beings, which means we are not genetically programmed to exist in one certain environment. So if you take a horse, for example, when a horse is born, they're up and running in 20 minutes because they're genetically encoded to know what situation they're going to be in. They're going to be in the savannah or wherever they can run. They have to get up and run quickly so the predator doesn't get them. For human beings, it's the opposite. We basically have no genetic encoding because we've moved around so much in the world and exist in different environments, which means we're very neuroplastic, which means that we learn on the fly. So we learn how to exist in the world from our parents. We learn how to survive. We learn what behavior is acceptable. We learn, social structures, and all these things are learned from our experience. They're not genetically encoded, right? And so as we grow, these become our identity. They become our belief system. They become our values. And most of the time, they draw us further away from our truest essence, from our deepest essence, and we don't even realize it's happening, sometimes never in our lives, until we get to a place later in life, like I did, where I was following the rules, I was following societal metrics, I was doing what everybody else told me I was supposed to do in order to feel fulfillment and excitement and joy and happiness, and it just wasn't happening. By all accounts, I had a great life. I had like the $1 million family, but there was some deep gnawing essence that I wasn't honoring. That was my deepest life purpose, and I would just numb out with alcohol, right? So the point here is, it is our job in life to clear away whatever we've been programmed and conditioned with to get back to our deepest essence, to get back to our truest selves, to get back in connection with that spiritual being that we are. So I believe that we're, before we're born, we just exist in pure consciousness. You could call it God, you could call it universe, collective consciousness, source energy, whatever label you want to put on it. It's just pure energy, because the universe at its essence is just energy. And then we are put into these human bodies with all these limitations, with all these fears, with all these ego games. And we move away from that deepest essence. We move away from that connection to pure awareness and pure love. And some of us never get back. We crawl into the shell of our ego, and we go through life thinking that we're separate, thinking that we're wrong, thinking that we're not doing enough. And we have these ego games and stories that are playing in our minds almost constantly, so often that we don't even realize they're happening. And so we'll get into some tools and some techniques in a little bit. But the idea here is the more that we can move back towards that pure awareness, to that deepest essence, that's love, the more that we can operate from there, the more we'll be able to access our infinite creativity and move into the world with a life purpose that feels amazing to us and is of highest benefit for all life. All right. So again, if you guys have any questions, you can drop them in the chat, or you can just write them down and we'll get to it once we wrap up. So here's what I was just talking about. Most often when we're kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's not what do you want to do when you grow up. It's what do you want to be when you grow up? And most kids will say something tied to an economic model: doctor, lawyer, astronaut, instead of, a good person, honest, trustworthy, loving, creative, more of a being aspect. And I just wanted to highlight this because often when we think about life purpose and what it means for us, we're often thinking it from a very narrow mind frame. We're thinking about, what job can I do, right? How can I be in an economic model? And by all means, abundance should be part of your model or your life purpose, but it doesn't have to be the primary focus. Your life purpose could be just be a good person, be an honest person, be a good parent, be a good daughter or son, be a good member of society, whatever that means for you. Be loving, be compassionate. That's enough of a life purpose. But, again, it comes back to what is most meaningful for you, coming from your deepest essence, coming from your connection to your highest self. All right. So I've mentioned it already, but for me, this is the diagram that most illustrates what life purpose means to me. So the intersection of what is your highest excitement? What do you love to do? What do you feel that isn't work to you? What is like, you wake up and it's like, yes, I get to do this all day long. What's your highest excitement? Even if it's challenging, even if it's, it's like, okay, this is hard for me. This is challenging my comfort zone. This is challenging my skill level, but it's really exciting and I love learning about it and I love doing it. So if you can intersect that with highest service, so meaning, in the West, especially in our Western culture, it's not what's best for everybody. It's not how can I be of highest service. It's what's best for me. What's best for my bottom line? What's best for my profit? And the extension of that, because we're stuck in our ego minds and the stories, we have this illusion of separation with our fellow man, illusion of separation with nature. And so we're capable, because of that illusion of separation, of doing harm to our fellow man and our fellow woman, our fellow people, doing harm to our fellow people and doing harm to the environment if it benefits me. And this is part of the mass delusion of society right now, and responsible for all of the problems that we're seeing in the world, in my opinion, is that we've disconnected ourselves from each other and from nature itself, because fundamentally we are one. I know that sounds like a new age spiritual thing to say, because we all have our individual essence and our individual expression. That's what makes it beautiful. But at the deepest layer, we are all interconnected, like with the universe, with the nature. You would be nothing. We wouldn't exist without the sun, without the bacteria, without the trees, without the ocean, without each other. We're social primates. We cannot survive by ourselves. If someone was cast out of the tribe, went back in our early development, when we were in tribal environments, you would die almost immediately. Human beings cannot exist by themselves. So this idea that we're separate is a misnomer. It's a complete illusion. And so tying your purpose, recognizing that your purpose has to be of highest service and value to you and to everybody else at the same time, right? And so this is something I've really been diving into, and some of the question I've been asking myself: how can I be of highest service? And that's why I moved into coaching, because I really feel like with my experience and my wisdom and my insight, I can offer something of service to other people that's in highest excitement and in highest service. And then the third category, in highest abundance. That means that I am being fulfilled. It means I am getting paid. It means I am feeling a sense of fulfillment that keeps me at my best. So when we're investigating what your purpose is, look for the engagement, look for the interaction between these three things: highest excitement, highest service, and highest abundance. And that intersection is where you'll find what's right for you. And again, it could manifest in many different ways. It manifests for me as music, as coaching, as holding space, as performing, as writing, as, creating content. There's many ways for me which this intersection, this feeling, this connection with purpose can manifest. So it doesn't have to be tied to one thing. I think that's important to mention, because so many people, they get caught in this idea that it has to be one way or it has to be one path. And that's a function of our mind identity. And we're going to get into that a little bit deeper in a second. All right, so let's keep moving. So creating clarity in the creative channel, clearing out the noise. So when I talked about earlier that we get imprinted, we get conditioned, we get programmed by our environment, by our parents, by our media, by our religious leaders, by our tribal elders, whoever it is that was influencing you at the beginning of your life and through your life. These are going to have impacts. They're going to have, you're going to come with this conditioning and this programming, right? So it's up to us to really become aware of what is our program, what are our limiting beliefs, and clearing away whatever noise or distraction or distortion or interference might be creating a disconnection from our deepest essence and how it expresses into the world, right? So I read this book recently called Creativity by Osho, the famous guru. And he describes creativity or expressing your life purpose as it's more of a taking away. It's an allowing. It's allowing something to happen through you. So allowing your truest nature, your deepest essence, your divine inspiration, source energy, infinite intelligence, God, whatever you want to call it, allowing space for that to move through you, right? And how that manifests when you allow that to move through you becomes your life purpose, right? So anything that might be covering that up, it's our responsibility to identify what it is, to either heal it, to reprogram it, to let go of it, to integrate it, to surrender to it, whatever needs to happen for that to be no longer covering up our deepest essence is what we need to do. So he likens it to becoming like bamboo. So bamboo is hollow in the center, right? And so the more you can create space within yourself, the more that you have space for the divine, for source energy to flow through you. Right now, for most people, myself included, there's all sorts of ego and noise and distraction and beliefs that are covering up our deepest essence. And it's like constricting the fire hose, right? It's like cut off. So you're just getting a little dribble of water coming out. When if you release all the stuff that's holding you back, you have the full flow, the full power of source energy, of infinite intelligence flowing through you. And you just have to be the vehicle. All your job is to be the conduit, to be the catalyst through which this incredible infinite power can move through you. And again, right now, one of the biggest reducing valves is our minds and our ego that limits us and creates this narrow view of through which we see the world, which is, a fraction of what's possible when we move into our deepest essence in our heart space. All right, cool. So let's keep moving. All right, so here, what are some of the things that inhibit our creative expression and our purpose? So we've talked about a few of them already: societal and cultural programming and conditioning, whatever, we're getting conditioned with as kids. Trauma is a massive one. And when I mean trauma, trauma is like a wide spectrum, right? At the capital T trauma, we have, rape and genocide and slavery and abuse, all the things that we typically associate with trauma. But trauma has a massive spectrum, right down to, you weren't picked up by your mother when you were crying as a child, and that left some kind of imprint on you, right? So all of us have trauma to a certain degree, right? And again, there's a spectrum, but it's your responsibility to identify your trauma, identify, your relationship with your parents, where you weren't nurtured, where you might have felt abandoned, whatever emotional wounds are happening beneath the surface. These are going to be the types of things that cover up your creativity and your expression, because they keep you locked in ego stories, and they keep the noose around that fire hose, and don't let it free because it's too scary, right? Oh, if we let go and we express ourselves fully, then I might not be worthy of validation. I might not be worthy of love. I might not, be accepted in society. So these are all the fear games that we play with ourselves because of our emotional wounds that don't allow us to express ourselves at the deepest level. So that's kind of egos and mind identification. Masks and roles these are the things that we learn through our conditioning, is like how we're supposed to show up in the world. We're supposed to be good students. We're supposed to be good workers. We're supposed to pay our taxes. We're supposed to be kind, and compassionate. All these, and we end up being. This is how you identify if you're playing roles and masks. If you feel like you're different with different people in your lives, you're playing different roles and masks, right? So if you're a different person with your mother than you are with your best friends, than you are with your boss, than you are with your lover, than you are with some stranger on the street or somebody pouring you coffee, then you know that you're playing identity roles. You're putting on masks to present a version of yourself that you think will be worthy and acceptable in that situation, right? So just check in with yourself and make a note of this, actually. What kind of identities are you playing right now? What kind of roles are you playing? Are you different with different people in your life? The answer is inevitably yes, because everybody is to a certain extent. But the more you can identify them and say, okay, I'm showing up this way with this person for what reason? What am I worried about? What am I hoping that they don't see about me? What am I hoping they do see about me? What am I trying to project here? And so your interaction with people when you're wearing a mask or you're playing a role will be very narrow, right? And so when I was talking about earlier in the societal, when you follow the metrics and you're supposed to be in fulfillment and happiness, it's a very shallow happiness because of these reasons. You've done everything right, but there's no real substance. There's no robustness. There's no richness to life at a shallow layer. It's only when we go deep, we have the courage to go deep within ourselves and recognize and identify these things that are holding us back. This is when we get to the deeper layers. This is when we get to our deepest essence. And from there, and only from there, can we allow our creative expression to come through and let it manifest in a purpose that is good for us, in highest excitement, highest abundance, and highest service. All right. So again, any questions, pop them in the chat, or we can get to them once we're wrapped up here. Okay. So again, the critical importance of self-awareness. So here, again, from that book, Creativity by Osho, is a beautiful quote that I paraphrased. The depth of your presence and your self-awareness is proportional to the expansiveness of your creative expression and thus your life purpose. The superficiality of the ego mind and its incessant chatter interferes with the depth and intensity of connection with life and experience. Thus, a deeper connection to self, and life allows for a more profound, novel, and expansive creative impulse. Woo! That is it on the head right there. That is like the superficiality of the ego mind is just what I was just talking about, right? So let me just give you a framework on what this looks like. So when we're in our mind and we're in our ego and we're in our identities, we are effectively limiting our potential and our opportunities. We're clutching on to the fire hose and not letting life flow through us, right? We're taught that we have to be in our minds, and our bodies is just like this sack of meat and bones and blood that we have to drag around. We have to take care of it. We have to let it sleep and all these things. But our mind is really where we're identified, right? And so we think we have to get all of the answers in our life via our mind. We have to know how it's going to happen. We have to see the plan. If we're making goals, we have to see the strategy. We have to see the results. We have to see the benchmarks on the way. It's a very linear way of looking at things. And again, it's one way to get things done. And, quite frankly, in my former life, when I was back in Toronto and, family man and working, I had a very linear life. Like, okay, I do this job for this amount of time, I get this amount of money and X, Y, and Z. But I didn't realize how much of life I was missing by being so mind identified, right? And how much of my power and my creativity I was missing. Even though I was working in a creative job, I was missing most of my creativity because I was cut off from my body. I was cut off from my heart. I was cut off from my soul. And the coherence that comes when you do the work to come into alignment with your mind, with your body, and with your soul. And the problem is right now, we're most of us identified in our mind. We live in our ego minds. We live in the stories and the beliefs and the bullshit, frankly, pardon my French, that our monkey minds are telling us all the time, right? And so to move past this, we must start moving into our body. We must start embodying, accessing the wisdom that comes from our bodies. And this is something I'm going to talk about a little bit more and give you specific tools on how you can do this. So the body, mind, heart, coherence. So I'm a huge fan of meditation and have been for some time. Having said that, I will say it took me a very long time to get to a place where it was a regular practice. I tried, I just got frustrated because I was thinking so much and, it just didn't seem like it was doing anything. And like that ego monkey mind came back online. It's like, you're wasting time and you could be doing, you could be writing emails right now. What are you doing? Get up off the floor. You fool. And that was my monkey mind. I was so identified with it. I was like, yeah, you're right. It's like that was the only voice I could hear. But over time, as I continued to do it, and there became a time where I separated and it became the witness of my mind. And in that moment of separation, I realized that I am not my mind. I am not my thoughts. I am not my ego. Right? I am the witness. I am the soul that is witnessing the ego. And that separation was a profound moment for me, right? Because now you can recognize, okay, if I'm not this mind, if I'm not my thoughts, if I'm not these masks and identities that I'm playing, who am I? And this is often the question people ask, when they're having a midlife crisis or midlife breakdown, similar to what I had, where, everything fell apart in my life, my marriage, my career, my sense of self, everything fell apart, but it had to. And this is something I only realized after. I had built this false illusion of an identity for myself, right? And when you're operating from a false illusion, when you're in your head, you can never be truly connected to the wisdom and the opportunity, the infinite possibility that exists in your body and when you are in full coherence, right? So meditation is a profound way to move out of your head, to move away from the ego and the stories and the mind identification and into the heart, because the heart doesn't have the boundaries of the mind. The mind, again, from an evolutionary perspective, is very effective because its job is to take the totality of reality, which is massive and way beyond what our simple human brains can handle, and reduce it down to whatever the information it needs to survive, right? And then that way, the ego and the mind are beautiful. They've done their job explicitly, very efficiently. But we don't realize is that that reductive valve of the mind cuts us off to infinite possibility. It keeps us in a very narrow and limited framework where we can only see what's right in front of us in this 3D reality of, linear time, right? When in reality, if we move past our mind into our body, into our heart space, we can then access the quantum. The quantum is the infinite field of possibility where anything is possible, right? And that's where we can really tune into our creative essence, where we can get back in touch with that consciousness, that pure consciousness of love and awareness I was talking about earlier. And from that place, we can express ourselves into the world that is purposeful and meaningful for us in our highest excitement, in highest service, in highest abundance. Okay, so I invite you, if you don't have a practice already of embodiment, of reflection, of being still, of journaling. These are some of the techniques you can use. Meditation, as I said, breath work is another massive one because it regulates your nervous system. Just with your breath alone, you can take yourself from one state to another, even to a peak state or down to, a relaxed state, just with your breath alone. That's how powerful we are as human beings and how much power there is in our body that remains untapped if we're just living in our minds. Intentional movement is another great way to be embodied, be that yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, dancing. Dancing is a fantastic way to get into your body. Another thing that these things will do is dancing is a great example because before when I was drinking, I wasn't able to dance unless I'd had, at least 3 to 5 drinks, just to sort of loosen me up and get in the mood. That was the story I was telling myself anyway. And so once I quit drinking, I had to relearn how to do a lot of things, dancing being one of them, because I was so afraid. I was so afraid of what people think or what I would look like. Do I look stupid? Am I going to be laughed at? Am I going to be criticized? Am I going to be judged? But I recognize now with my new self-awareness, like, okay, those are just stories that I'm playing in my head. Those aren't true. Nobody cares about me or what I'm doing. And so it allowed me to confront my fear and the edges of my comfort zone. So dancing is a great, and authentic connection is another way to do this. Really sitting with another human being and looking into their eyes and not looking away for an extended period of time. You will recognize very quickly where your judgments lie, where your fears lie, where your beliefs lie, because they're going to come screaming to the surface. The ego is going to be like, look away, or don't dance, you're going to look stupid. So if you cultivated enough self-awareness and become the witness of your mind and its stories, then you could say, oh, there it is. There's another story that's saying, I'm not enough, or I'm stupid, or, I don't deserve this, whatever the ego is telling you. Right. And so it's our job to identify what's going on in our ego mind and no longer become identified with it, no longer follow those patterns, and just become the witness of it. And then we can intentionally work with it and say, okay, this belief that I'm not enough or I don't deserve love or whatever it might be, that's not working for me anymore. That might have kept me safe when I was a kid or whatever traumatic situation that belief developed. Yes. Okay. It might've been very useful in that moment. But now, many years later, is that belief still working for me? Because it's still operating in the background. It's still influencing my choices and my behaviors and everything I do. So here's an opportunity with that newfound self-awareness, that witness of your mind, to become aware of, okay, where am I holding myself back? Where am I identified with my mind, right? Where can I move more into a heart space, beyond my identity, beyond time and space, where infinite possibility and unlimited creativity reside. Dr. Joe Dispenza is another great resource. If you're not familiar with him, I recommend checking him out. He says it like this: you cannot enter the quantum space or the heart space or pure awareness, pure love, consciousness, whatever you want to call it. You cannot enter that space being someone or something or in some time, right? Because those are qualities of identification, of mind identification. You have to enter the quantum through no time, no thing, and as no one, right? So you have to move beyond that identity, move beyond the ego and the mind identity. And if you're able to do that through breath work, through meditation, through intentional movement, through dancing, through all these modalities, then you move into the heart space. And the heart space knows no boundaries. It doesn't have the reductive limitations that the mind does. Right? And so when you begin to operate from that space and without ego identity, without all this reduction, anything is possible. Because in the infinite, in the quantum realm, there's no linear time. So it's not necessarily going to take you, a year, 5 years, 10 years to accomplish some goal that seems so far off in the distance. You can literally have quantum shifts in the moment and come into alignment with yourself, with your purpose, with your mission instantaneously. And once you do that, you can even see in the Buddha is doing that pose right now. This is this pose of alignment, inner alignment between your mind, between your body, between your heart. When you reach mind, body, heart coherence, you become like an antenna. You become that empty vessel, bamboo, for source energy to flow through you and for you to access it. It's like accessing cosmic Google. Anything, any answer, any intention, anything is available in that moment, but it necessitates you going beyond your mind and your ego and the stories that is playing there. All right. So 2 other things about that. Healthy communication, like I said earlier, we are social primates. So having healthy relationships with the people around you is going to hugely impact your life and your creativity and your sense of purpose. So do your best to surround yourself with people who are doing this work, that are reflecting, that are doing the work of healing, of personal development, because they will hold space for you and reflect back to you where you're out of alignment. If you're with people, and that sometimes necessitates you letting go of some people. Again, when I quit drinking, I had to let go of some people that were no longer in alignment with who I was becoming. And that's painful. It's not fun. But at the same time, like I said earlier, we have to eliminate anything that's a distraction, that's noise, anything that's cluttering up our creative channel. And that can be toxic or negative people that we surround ourselves with. It can be media. It can be movies. It can be shitty food and diet. It can be, what we're reading. Any of those things can serve as noise or clutter or distraction that will cover up your deepest essence and prevent you from accessing that deepest layer of creativity. Awesome. So let's keep moving here. Okay, so making sense of the world. So this is something I just wanted to touch on a little bit because I could do an entire workshop about this alone. Making sense of the world, especially in the last 18 months, has become incredibly difficult. It was difficult before, but now the complexity and the narrative warfare, I would call it, that's going on right now is incredibly difficult to navigate. And the reason I wanted to just touch on this is that oftentimes when you're looking to become of highest service, remember we talked about earlier, your purpose lies at the intersection of highest service, highest excitement, and highest abundance, right? So when you're looking at that highest service factor, it's sometimes we'll want to be of highest service in a way that's meaningful on the global stage, right? So some of us might want to get involved in politics, or we might want to become activists, or we might want to become involved with agriculture or sustainable development or the environment, something that's, on the global stage as a major issue. But the danger here is if we haven't done the inner work that I was talking about earlier, we haven't identified our mind identities and our roles and our masks, we haven't dealt with our trauma, we haven't done the work of healing, then what can happen is we can move into the world and be trying to influence some arena, but what we end up doing is just projecting our trauma, our limiting beliefs, our biases onto the world and actually making it worse, right? And we spoke about this on the last call that Lexi was there, about motivations. Oftentimes when we're looking to do something or we're looking to make a big choice, we have to look at what motivations are in play, right? And that on the surface, it might look like, okay, I really want to, solve world hunger, or I want to alleviate poverty. I want to work with the environment. Those are all amazing things to do. But there's probably some other motivations that you're aware of that you don't really share. It's like, okay, yeah, I want to make some money. I want to look cool and pretend like I'm doing something cool for the world, that because, maybe that girl I'm trying to ask out will like me more if I do this. Those are some of the conscious motivations that maybe we don't share with other people. But then there's the whole list of unconscious motivators that is exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe there was trauma as a kid. Maybe you were abandoned. Maybe you didn't get enough love and you're trying to fill some hole, some deficiency by going out and making a difference in the world, right? So making sense of the world and your place in it and how you can be of highest service necessitates you doing the inner work first, but then also, okay, how do I make sense of what's going on? Again, now more than ever, it's almost impossible to know what's going on. Like if you're just listening to the mainstream media and that narrative, okay, that's one narrative. There's some truth there. Most of it, in my opinion, is propaganda used to manipulate us, to keep us in a state of fear. Because when you're in a state of fear, you go into your mind. You're not in your body. You're in your head because you're in fight or flight mode. So the people, that are wishing to control us or gain power over us know this very well, right? They are completely aware of what they're doing. And so the media, as you will recognize, is typically 99% fear-based, because they know fear will trigger you. It'll keep you in your mind. It'll keep you in your fight or flight, keeps you away from your creativity and your sovereignty and your agency and your mind, body, heart coherence. It keeps you away from, being a thorn in the side of those who wish to control us, right? And so recognizing that is a massive step. Okay, sure, the mainstream media, there's some truth there. But if you look across the diverse, landscape of narratives, it's our responsibility to be able to hold multiple perspectives, not just attached to one perspective because it aligns with my existing biases or my existing beliefs or my identity or my view of the world, because we already learned that our minds are incredibly reductive. So usually if we have strong beliefs about something or we think something is right, we're usually wrong, or our view is maybe partial, right? But we end up getting polarized into these tribal, groups of, okay, this is what I believe, and anything that doesn't agree with this is the enemy, right? And then this person over here is like, this is what I believe, and anything else over there is the enemy. So there's no middle ground. There's no, it's like, okay, maybe there's some truth in this, maybe there's some noise and some bullshit here, but the same goes on this side, right? So we end up arguing for partiality, and we just get in constant conflict, and there can be no resolution. So the only way to move past this, this bottleneck in our development is to begin to A, do the inner work, and then B, learn how to identify your own biases, your own limiting beliefs, because they're going to be influencing what media you consume, what beliefs you have. Practice active and empathetic listening and steel manning. This might be the most important one. When we're talking to each other, like I mentioned earlier, in our culture, it's a very superficial exchange, right? When I'm talking to you, I'm usually looking for, what can I get out of you? What is going to be of maximum benefit to me? How can you help me, right? So, and that could be in a business proposition. That could be, I need attention. That could be, I want sex. That could be, I want money. Whatever it is I want from you, I'm going to play that role or the mask in order to get it. So that means there's a very superficial exchange going on between us. I'm never actively listening. I'm never actively trying to understand what you think and why, right? So even if I do, and I say, okay, well, you think this way, do I really empathetically understand why that's meaningful to you, right? And again, I don't want to go too deep on this. Maybe I'll do a whole other workshop on it. But when we're thinking about what our purpose might be, and we are of the mind that it wants to be something that's going to be of highest impact into the world, we have to be able to make sense of the world so we don't go out and end up making the world worse because we're just projecting our trauma or our limiting beliefs or our biases onto the world. All right. So again, we can talk about this more in the Q&A after, but seeking higher order truth, not arguing for your own partiality. And this is the last thing I say about this. So if you're looking to make sense of the world, you can almost guarantee that one news source, and it's typically the mainstream media, is not giving you the whole picture, right? I think we can all agree on that. They're doing whatever in their best interest, A, to keep you on the website or keep you engaged in the media broadcast, B, to get you outraged and get you having an emotional reaction because it keeps you watching, right? They're not looking to have higher order truth or to make sense of the world. They're interested in you being outraged and going into your fear response, getting triggered, so you stay engaged with the media broadcast or the website or whatever it is. So recognizing that is step one. And then, seeking out perspectives and attitudes that are different from your own, purposefully. It's like, I follow on social media now, I follow right wing, I follow left wing, I follow, environmental groups, I follow oil and gas, like just the whole spectrum. Because I want to know what their narratives are. And within their narratives, there's always going to be a kernel of truth, right? There's going to be a lot of noise, and it's our responsibility to parse the signal from the noise, right? But if you can do this across the spectrum, okay, you take, say, 6 pieces of news about the same topic, and you go in, it's like, okay, what's true about this one? what's true about this one, and this one. From there, you can seek a higher order truth or a synergy, which will give you a more broad perspective, not just partial reality. All right. Okay. That's the last thing I'm going to say about that. Any questions? Again, we can talk about it at the end. Okay. So right now, if this is resonating for you and you like what you're hearing, you're not sure what the next steps are, I just want to give you a couple of invitations to go deeper. Like I said, I have moved into coaching. It's one of the most powerful vehicles in my experience. I've hired lots of coaches. I still work with coaches myself because it's one of the most powerful modalities to get the best results the fastest. Because when you enter a container with another person with the intention of your greatest transformation and becoming the best version of yourself, if you're with a good coach, there's nowhere to run and hide. There's nowhere for your bullshit to hide. All of your ego, all of your limiting beliefs, all of your trauma, everything is going to come to the surface, but in a way where it's held, where you feel safe, you feel confident, you feel okay to let down your barriers and really investigate and explore yourself at the deepest layer. Because if we're just trying to do it by ourselves, we most often than not cannot see our blind spots, right? And so when you work with somebody else, they hold up the mirror. That's exactly what I do. I hold up the mirror for you to see the blind spots that you might not be able to see by yourself. And I ask you the deep questions that maybe somebody else will not ask you. And then I hold you accountable for what you say you want. And those three things offer the results and the transformation in a short amount of time. It's incredibly powerful. Okay, so there's that. If you're interested in pursuing that, just shoot me an email. We can talk further about it. The CHRYSALIS is another initiative that I've started, and a couple of you actually in this group are part of it already. I wanted to, everything I'm talking about here, life purpose, creative power, making sense of the world, gaining more sovereignty and agency in your personal world, becoming more coherent in your body, mind, and spirit. These are all the things I've identified as extremely necessary for us to survive the current problems we have in the world, right? And especially in the last year, we've become so isolated, we've become so divided, so divorced from reality, physically isolated because of lockdown and stuff, that it's wearing on us mentally. Right? So what I wanted to do is create a container, an online conscious community where we can gather, where we can find support, where we can do this work together, where we can, connect with each other and ask questions and feel safe, feel vulnerable enough to explore ourselves without judgment, without blame, without shame, without guilt, any of that other stuff. This is the place to do it. And so if that resonates for you, I'll just go through quickly what I sort of came up with. The journey within the CHRYSALIS is these stages. So waking up, really becoming aware of what's going on in the world and how much we've been living in our mind and basically operating on autopilot for our entire lives, right? And then becoming conscious is really owning our power, taking responsibility, dealing with our trauma, looking at our biases and emotional wounds and limiting beliefs, and integrating, healing, that kind of stuff. Aligning with purpose, exactly what this whole workshop is about, really, peeling back the layers to anything that's covering up our deepest essence and starting to build that foundation of coherence in our hearts through which we can operate into the world and have a life imbued with purpose and fulfillment and joy that is of highest service, that is in highest alignment, highest excitement, and highest abundance. Making sense is the whole section I just talked about. I would love that to be a more central focus of the CHRYSALIS because it's so, so important. If we can't make sense of what's going on in the world, how can we be expected to make good quality decisions for ourselves, for our children, for our families, for our community? We can't. So making sense of the world is critical if we want to be effective and make good choices. And then becoming sovereign is the ultimate goal, where you've built a foundation of healed wholeness. You've integrated your trauma, your limiting beliefs. You become aware of your mind identities and your ego. You've worked with them to integrate them. You've identified your purpose and ways it can manifest. You've tapped into that heart space of infinite possibility and potential, and you operate from there in your highest expression, in your highest creative capacity, which is best for you and the entire world at the same time. That's the most beautiful part that maybe I haven't emphasized enough right now. The more that you do this work, you come into alignment with yourself, that you find your purpose and your creative expression. You at your highest unique expression is what's best for you and the world simultaneously. You are fundamentally making the world a more beautiful, true, and honest place by being in your highest expression, right? And that's going to mean something different for different people. It might mean even something different for you at different stages of your life. For me, example, I've been in coaching for a long time. Music is another way, writing is another way, performing, dancing. These are all manifestations of my purpose and my creative expression that are different and can change over time. So it's malleable is what I'm trying to say there. Okay, so that's the Chrysalis. Here's what's included. I'll just deal with this quickly. 2 live coaching calls per month, thriving online community where we communicate, we can get support daily. There's core training videos outlining that journey I just talked about. New content I'll be uploading every month. And then as the community grows, I'll be inviting guest speakers, more workshops, just in a supportive and empowering peer-to-peer environment where we can really feel empowered to do this work and support each other. And then at the end, special offers on some of my other coaching packages and stuff. And the bonus I'll be giving away free if anybody wants to sign up is my guided meditation course, which comes custom with binaural beats, custom music that I've created myself specifically for these meditations. Binaural beats are brainwave entrainment where you have one frequency in one ear, different frequency in the other way. And it allows you to go deep within yourself very quickly out of your mind and into that heart space through the music alone, as well as a guided meditation. Okay, so there it is. Here is a photo of a bunch of us on, that's actually from the Fuck Yes Club, but this is what it looks like when we're on a call. Look at the energy in these faces. So exciting to connect. We do this twice a month, and it's so powerful to connect with each other, have that authentic connection, and really support each other. It's just fantastic way to navigate these crazy times that we're in right now. Okay, so the investment for this, the Chrysalis, is $47 a month. That's 50% off the regular price of $97. If you want to do it for the entire year and just get payment out of the way, you get 2 months free. So it's only $470 for the year. If you think about how much you spend on coffee or some other things that you buy, it's like, this is a no-brainer to get involved with a community that is doing this work of healing, of finding purpose, of making sense, of creative expression, of becoming sovereign, and really making a difference in the world. I truly believe that the more we can build the Chrysalis into this powerful entity, we will be facilitating change in the world that is unheard of, right? Really becoming an entity all to itself where we can affect and maybe have, new initiatives. We can start new initiatives. Maybe it's a charity, maybe it's an agricultural initiative, maybe it's a community, something. But there's so much potential when we gather our resources and all of us are doing the work to become heart-centered, and in that quantum realm, the possibilities are endless. That's all I'm going to say about it. If you're interested, I will pop a link in the chat so you can check out more about the Chrysalis. That's it. Thank you so much for coming. I love you all. This has been so rewarding for me because this is the most passionate thing I have in my life right now. And I'm so excited to share it and, just be in the presence of all you amazing people. And now I would love to hear from you about any questions you have, any feedback, anything that's going on right now. You can just unmute yourself. I'm going to take this off screen share and let's chat. What do you guys think? Yeah. I think you're on mute there, brother. Logan.
Hello, how's it going?
Hey, excellent. How are you, man?
Good. I just was hanging out with Reese and Lexi. I'm from the Billboard 500 Club, and they told me to come on and check you out, man. This is my girlfriend, too. She's avoiding the camera.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. We enjoyed your speech, and I think that was really well put together.
Cool.
I was thinking,
Thanks, bro.
I had a question for you. What you kind of think is what do you think is the next move for people like us who are kind of being suppressed by the media, who are like I feel like we accept the fact that that something's wrong and we're all definitely on that side that like we're being brainwashed, we're being put out, but it's just like, what do you think is the next move? What do we have to do as a society? What do we have to do as people to fix
Great
this
question,
problem
dude.
that we've got? you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Logan. I really appreciate that. The number one thing you can do is take responsibility for your own consciousness, right? So exactly what I've been talking about in this presentation. The more we can identify where we're in mind, where we're in ego, where we're operating from our trauma, from deficiency, from limiting beliefs, because these are the things that the people in power use to control us, right? If all those things are still operating in your unconscious and you are getting triggered by them unknowingly, maybe it's on a Facebook page, maybe it's on, CNN, maybe it's in the newspaper, and it's triggering something in you that you're unaware of, then you are being controlled. You are being manipulated without your knowledge, right? So the most powerful thing you can do is become aware and become conscious, right? And so that's the fundamental thing. And the more that you do that, you come back to a healed wholeness, then the more you recognize, wait a minute, I'm being manipulated right now, and then you won't go into your trigger response. You won't go into your emotional reactivity, right? And that moment, you are claiming your sovereignty, your personal sovereignty over your mind and your body and your emotions. That is the most powerful thing you can do. And the more you cultivate that foundation within yourself, the less controllable you'll be to the powers that be, right? You have a sovereignty, a fundamental foundation that is unfuckable with, right? And so you're not giving your power away to anybody. That's the number one step. And then as you're doing that work, you find other people that are doing this work. And that's basically what the chrysalis is. It's other people doing this work. Find your tribe. Who else is doing this work? Who else can you talk to about this? Who else can you find support in doing it, right? And then the more you have support, the more you can investigate at a deeper level, okay, what's really going on in the world? So if you saw the making sense part of this presentation, it's almost guaranteed that everything you're being fed, especially if you're listening to the mainstream media, is propaganda, right? It's designed to serve some agenda that isn't in your best interest, right? So if you recognize that, you can sort of distance yourself from it. You can disassociate from it. Like I still will watch some of that just to see what the narrative is being portrayed. And then I'll do my own research on, okay, what other narratives are there? Who else is talking about this issue that has a different perspective, right? And so number one, take your consciousness and responsibility for yourself and your own personal development. Find your other people that are doing the same work. And then number three, work on your sense-making ability, figuring out how to make sense of the world, by being able to hold multiple perspectives at once. And the only way that you can do that is let go of your biases and understand what your limiting beliefs are in the first place. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Can I continue on with that question if that's cool?
Please do.
Yeah. Well, I was just wondering, I kind of feel like we're in a position now where it's almost like, so I'm from Canada. We're from Edmonton, Alberta. That's where we're at.
Cool.
And at this point, it does kind of feel like it's a bit too late to wake up the masses because they've already kind of gone too far.
Yes.
That's kind of and as much as I want to keep working on myself, and continue to do that, I've kind of shifted my perspective to more of the what is the world going to look like in 6 months from now, and how can we prevent it from what they want it to look like, And so I was wondering if you'd been doing any thought on this type of more of the masses or the too far gone or that sort of thinking. It's like, are we just saving ourselves at this point, or do you think that there still is a way to wake up those people who are asleep?
Yeah, great question, dude. And this is something I've wrestled with a lot. And frankly, it's been the source of a lot of anxiety, stress, and depression for me. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
One of the things I came to, when I was investigating the world many years ago is that basically the war is over and we've lost, us being, the majority of the population. It's like, they've already got control. Like the war has already happened. We didn't even know it happened, right? That's how, and I just went down the rabbit hole into a dark, depressive state. That's really when I had my, my dark night of the soul and then my spiritual awakening. It's like, okay, wait a minute. All is not lost here. What can I do? And everything I've been talking about in this presentation is primary. It's the fundamental thing is taking responsibility for yourself and your own consciousness. And then recognizing it, finding other people. It's not going to take the entire population waking up to shift the needle. It's not going to take everybody. Yeah. And, a lot of people, I've got now a spiritual community of empowered people that are really doing powerful stuff. Like one of my friends, my dear friends, is going to the World Economic Forum this January with a crew of spiritual embodied people, powerful people, and with money to bring this, this practice, this authentic relating, this humanity, this consciousness to the people that actually are shaping our economic reality, right? And she's been there before, and she's like, none of these people have any idea, because a lot of them are just following orders, right? They're just like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. You know, this is what the board members tell me I'm supposed to be doing. So the more we can awaken people of positions of power, the more we can move the needle in that respect. And the point is, it's not going to take everybody. It's not going to take everybody to shift the needle and shift the paradigm, right? It's frankly, it's only going to take a small percentage. Some people say as little as 10%. And from my experience traveling the world, connecting with these communities, like I'm part of probably 10 WhatsApp groups globally that are all these people making incredible progress in this regard of shifting the paradigm, but you're not seeing it on CNN. You're not seeing it on Fox News because it's a groundswelling. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so it gives me a lot of hope that the transformation that needs to happen is going to be a bottom-up transformation. It's not going to be a top-down authority thing. We're not going to fight them at their game and win. It's not going to happen. Yeah. Right. And so again, how to do that? Take responsibility for your own consciousness and your sovereignty. Heal your shit. Come into alignment with your purpose, excuse me, and your creative expression. Find the other people that are doing the same thing. Find your community, right? Exactly why I started the CHRYSALIS, to offer a space for people to do this work so we can feel supported, so we don't feel isolated against this giant behemoth of, you know, banksters and the elite or whoever's trying to control us. So that's what I would say, man. There is hope. You're just not seeing it on the mainstream news.
Absolutely. Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. I did ask you earlier, like, you know, of the Billboard 500 Club. Are you part of that? Yeah,
I'm part of it. Yeah, I'm a mentor.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I haven't been for very long, only about like 6 months, but this is super cool then. I cool. Love this, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Yeah. Thanks for checking in, man. And great questions. Really appreciate it, Logan. What kind of music do you do, dude?
Oh, I'm kind of all over the map. I've been like, Adam's got me working like in the past couple sync courses or sync camps. I was doing like bedroom pop stuff, but nice. I'm like a dad rock guy at heart, you know.
Dad rock, so, dude. That's my wheelhouse. I love your AC/DC poster.
Exactly. That's kind of where I sit at the majority of the time. But yeah, so that
beautiful, dude.
What about you?
Yeah, well, I made music for advertising for 20 years, so I'm like kind of a jack of all trades. But pop rock was definitely where I got pigeonholed. Like I was the pro at pop rock, you know. So and rock is coming around again, so I'm stoked.
It is. Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah, I know. Yeah, I've been kind of the guy that they've been coming to for all of like the guitar work and stuff. It's kind of funny.
Nice.
So yeah,
dude, we should collaborate.
I would love that. That would be so awesome. Yeah, sweet.
Cool, brother.
Let's do it.
All right, we'll chat offline. But great question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, here, let me pop the link for the CHRYSALIS if anybody wants to check it out. There's a video there, and here you go. Let me see. There we go. Yeah. So if anybody wants to check it out, it's there. I think you'll get an email about it as well if you registered for this. Cool. Any other questions?
Hi,
Haruka.
Question?
Yeah, please.
Thank you, Patrick. That was very inspirational.
Awesome.
Yeah. My question is, how do you know what your life purpose is?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? This is the thing. It's not going to be one thing. That's the whole point, right? It's so moving beyond your mind's seeking to figure out what the one answer is the first step, right? So that idea that we have to identify with our mind that it's this one thing. I have to be a lawyer, or I have to be, fill in the blank, whatever it is that your mind thinks, because most often that identity or that desire is going to come from somebody else. Like, I need to be a lawyer because I need to make money. I need to be a good part of society. But really, is that what I want? No, that's what my father wanted. That's what my parents wanted, or something like that. Or you're caught in your mind identity about, okay, well, this is what I want, but I can't really see how to get that. Like, I want to be an artist, but I can't see how that's going to work. So I'm going to just ignore that and do something else. So moving
Mhm.
beyond your mind is number one. And that's basically the gist of this entire presentation, is moving out of your mind and into your body and becoming a vessel for the divine, for source energy, for pure creativity, love, and awareness to move through you, and let that inform what your purpose will be. Right.
So
And
do you have to be in the body to connect with that part?
100%, 100%. So you need to be doing practices of meditation or breath work or yoga or dancing, whatever moves you into your body and away from out of your head. Then you can start paying attention. You become the empty vessel. And so what I've been doing is, even now, whenever I meditate, I ask the question, how can I be of highest service? Or whatever question you want to ask, what is my life purpose? And just, the more you can quiet the mind and move into the body, become this vessel, the more you'll be available for that wisdom of your heart, of your body, of the universe to move through you.
Mhm.
Right? So if you're trying to figure it out with your mind, most likely you're never going to figure it out.
Yeah.
You need to move past your mind into the wisdom of your body, and then allow for that wisdom, because the wisdom of your heart and your soul is a whisper. It's a whisper. And the noise
so
of your
subtle.
mind, it's so subtle, but and then once you start hearing it, it's like, oh, there it is. And then you start to amplify it. You start to trust it more. It becomes your guiding voice, where now for most of us, we're stuck in the ego identity, and the incessant thinking of our mind is what we operate from. And we think that's who we are, but it's not. That's an illusion. Right. So really moving into your body. Go ahead.
So I have been meditating for like over 5 years now. And sometimes I do ask questions in my meditations, and I do get like answers, but it's always very vague. And I don't know, so I'm just wondering if I'm not really supposed to do anything specific, but just, I don't know, do whatever I enjoy. I'm just, wondering right now.
And enjoyment is definitely. So we've spoken before. I know how talented you are, Haruka. We've had this conversation before, and your expression brings you the most excitement, does it not?
Yeah, it does.
So the question for you is then, where are you holding yourself back in being of service and allowing abundance to arrive with that expression? Right. So most often it's like, I'm an artist, but I have this belief I can't make money, or I'm not really serving anybody, so I'm just going to do it for myself. Right. And so that's a limiting belief. That's an example of where the reductiveness of our mind is wreaking havoc on us and preventing us from full expression of our purpose. Right. So identifying what beliefs are in place where, maybe I'm not good enough. I'm not talented enough. I'm not valuable enough. I can't make money with art. These are all limiting beliefs of your mind that are preventing your fullest expression. And if you were in your fullest expression and open to the possibility of the quantum realm, then abundance can arrive in many different ways that maybe we're not expecting, right? Because if you're looking for abundance to arrive in one way, then you're still caught in your mind. And if you're only looking at it like, okay, I've got the blinders on, oh, I don't see abundance, it's not there, it must mean I'm not on my right life path, right? Or my purpose. But wait a minute, if I move into my heart, all of a sudden I'm wide open and, just basking in the opportunity and the potential of it all, then anything can come to you in that mode because you're open to receiving it, right? If you're in your mind, you're like this, expecting it to come in one way, and it's never going to arrive that way.
Yeah.
Or it can, but it's more rare, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, maybe I should just be more open to different ways and different opportunities.
Well, yeah. And this is where the inner work comes into play. It's like what limiting beliefs are still present in you that are preventing you from being in that openness, and that can be anything. It can be, usually it manifests as not enoughness. I'm not good enough. Therefore I can't attract abundance. Therefore I'm just,
I recognize that I have that within me. Yeah.
Almost everybody does.
Yeah.
Almost everybody does, because that's, if you saw the beginning of the presentation, the conditioning that we inherit is like, okay, you're not good enough, or some of your behavior is not acceptable, so you have to do it this way. And so then we're trained at a very early age, okay, I have to behave in a certain way, which means I have to be constantly paying attention to other people to see if my behavior is okay, to see if I'm going to be validated, to see if I'm going to be worthy of love. So you're constantly looking outside of yourself, which inherently breeds not enoughness. You know, if I have to look outside of me for validation, that intrinsically means I'm not enough. And that becomes, almost everybody has that problem. Not enough-itis, I call it.
Yeah, I really see that inside myself. And yeah, I'm just at this stage where I want to work on it, and I don't really know how.
Yeah.
I reckon that I don't know what to do specifically.
Yeah.
You know.
I would go back to the limiting belief exercise in the Fuck Yes Club.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I can, if you can't access it, I'll send it to you again.
Really?
But that's super powerful because identifying those limiting beliefs, those are the things that are going to keep you stuck in your head and away from that expansive heart quantum zone, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And there's always deeper layers. You know, the more you do this work, the more you realize it never ends. It's like you just keep peeling back the layers. But that's the most beautiful thing. The more layers you peel back, the closer you get back to that pure essence of love and awareness that we were when we entered this world, right? That this culture and the society and this 3D reality has pulled us away from, right? And so continue doing the work, peel back the layers, and, you know, just keep moving into your heart and opening and asking the questions, and your purpose will come if you allow it to. You know, stop trying, maybe, is another good, you know?
Yeah.
Stop trying to figure it out with your head.
Yeah. I really like the word allow. It's like it feels very, I don't know, it's not pushy.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Because we've been programmed. It's like, oh, I got to be hustling. I got to be struggling. It's this idea is like, if I work harder than you, then I'm better than you, you know, and it's bullshit. It's bullshit, frankly. Right. So creating space within ourselves is the way to our highest power, because then we're becoming a vessel, you know, free from noise, distortion, ego, stories, trauma. The more we create space within ourselves, the more there's space for the creative energy, the force, the power that creates worlds and galaxies to move through us, that we have access to at all times. We're just restricting it with this valve we call our mind and our ego, right? Because that's what we've been taught to do. That's what society does. That's what everybody does. It's like, oh yeah, we live in our heads. It's like the body is just like this thing we got to carry around. It's a pain in the ass. But it's not. There's so much wisdom. The body is where all of our power and wisdom resides, right? So moving past our mind identification, and it's all in the body. It's all in the body, you know? How's that feel?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I always thought that it's in the soul, but
no, the same thing. Yeah, the same thing. Well, the heart, the soul, the spirit, the body, it's all the same thing to me.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your whole
it's just
being.
got different, your whole being, exactly. Rather than just your mind. Right? Because that's where, that's where you access the infinite, is through those portals, not through the mind.
Okay. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Wow. Thank you. Yes.
Pleasure. Great to see you, Haruka. My pleasure.
Thanks again, Patrick. We're just going to head off for dinner. Have a good rest of the evening.
Okay, beautiful.
Nice
right on.
You.
Well, nice to meet you too. Maybe this is a good place to wrap. If anybody doesn't have any other questions, really appreciate you guys all checking it out. The link to the CHRYSALIS is in the chat if anybody wants to check it out. And thank you so much. I love you all. We'll see you real soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Patrick.
Ciao, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.